Well, it's great to be here. It's my third time coming. The last two times I guess there was a vacation, and then we were here in the summer. We were here 2 years ago. I think it was about 5 degrees and like a blizzard. I was in San Diego yesterday, and it was about 95 degrees and sunny, just to give you a feeling. Anyway, I'm John Oakes. I'm a professor of chemistry and physics in San Diego, and we're putting on a conference this weekend, a Christian Evidences conference here at York College. You say, why York College? Well, because we got invited. And we're an organization, we work with the Churches of Christ, and I've spoken in over 70 countries and over 150 churches, and I do talks about evidence for Christianity. So my job this morning is to give you a few ideas or reasons to believe in the Bible, but also to kind of tease you a bit and make you think, gee, I need to go to some of those events this weekend, which are all for free. So anyway, the conference itself is on history, archaeology, and Christianity. And so I'm going to invite you, at the end of this little PowerPoint section, I have some slides talking about the classes. I've got copies of the outline of the conference. Please come just for one class for all day. It's going to be classes today and tomorrow. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about evidence from archaeology. A lot of people say, oh, the Bible's full of fables and stories and things people just made up. Can't believe it and all that kind of stuff. So I want to show you a few facts from history and archaeology that, to me, tells me the Bible is, in fact, inspired by God. Oops, I forgot to start my stopwatch, so I now still have 12 minutes to go. All right. So now, you hear the story about Sodom and Gomorrah, and people say, obviously, that's just a story of the fire and the brimstone. And besides, if you go to the area around the Dead Sea, it's completely desolate. And in Genesis, what it has is a story about the 5 cities, Zeboim and Sodom and Gomorrah and all that. And remember, Abraham said to Lot, hey, take the good land down there by the Dead Sea. And, archaeologists and skeptics of the Bible say, that's obviously ridiculous. Nobody can believe that. But, and if you read it in Genesis chapter 14, it talks about the 5 kings of the 5 cities, and they went with Abraham and Lot and fought this battle against Kedorlaomer from Elam. And then, anyway, a few years ago, an archaeologist thought, what the heck, why not check out and see if there's actually anything there around the Dead Sea? And guess what they found out? They found out that about 4,000 years ago, there was agriculture there with these 5 wadis. This pointer, it's a great pointer, except it doesn't go that far. Anyway, anyway, what they found was there was agriculture with irrigation. And guess how many cities they found? Remember, because the story is 5 kings and 5 cities. Guess how many cities they found? Exactly 5. And all 5 cities were destroyed by fire roughly 2,100 BC and never occupied again. In fact, the entire area was basically never occupied again. The largest of the cities is Bad el-Dor, which is in the northern one there, and it ashes as much as 7 feet thick. And interestingly, outside of the city, there was a graveyard, and they had these structures, they're wooden structures, and they burned from the top to the bottom. So interesting, all 5 cities destroyed by fire around 2100 BC, and apparently destroyed by fire that started from the top and burned towards the bottom. Do you realize we have evidence here of the actual destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the right timing, the right place, even the right number of cities? There are the ruins of the city that the skeptic says didn't even exist. There are many more examples. A lot of people say, oh, there's really no evidence that the Jews ever were in Egypt. And besides, the whole idea about the conquest and Moses, that's silly. We all know that the Jews were not a significant tribe at that time, didn't exist. And then in the city of Tel El Amarna, they found an inscription. Actually, it's on a clay tablet. And what it says here is, the Habiru, plunder all the lands of the king. If archers are here this year, then the lands of the king, the Lord, will remain. But if archers are not here, then the lands of the king, my Lord, are lost. Who do you think the Hapiru might be? I think probably the Hebrews. What do you think? So here we have good evidence that the Jews did indeed invade the Promised Land. And by the way, this is from Tel El Amarna, roughly 1400 BC, which is the right timing for when the Jews entered the Promised Land. There's many other examples. And in fact, here is an inscription that gives good evidence for a miracle in the Bible. This is the Taylor Prism. It's in the British Museum. It looks like this huge thing. It's actually about this big with tiny little writing. When I go to the British Museum, it's like a kid in a candy shop. It's awesome. But anyway, here what's happening is King Sennacherib is bragging about how he destroyed all the cities of Judah. Exactly like it says in 2 Kings 18. But then it says he came to Jerusalem and he put Hezekiah in the city like a bird in a cage. And then the story stops. That's interesting because in ancient times they always recorded their victories, but they never recorded their defeats. Is that the way the Bible is? Records only victories and no defeats? No, it's exactly the opposite. In fact, I believe the Bible is by far the most accurate historical record we have from the ancient world. And yet skeptics say they don't believe anything in it. So why do you think he said that I put Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage? Why did the story stop right there? Well, those of you who read 2 Kings 18, you know why the story stopped right there. Because what happened next? His army was destroyed by this destroying angel. There's so many examples. And this is the Siloam inscription. And I don't know if you're aware, but Hezekiah, he built that tunnel that went out to the spring of Siloam. And then sure enough, they found it was like 2,000-foot-long tunnel through solid rock. They found the tunnel, as mentioned in 1 Kings, and they found the inscription saying that Hezekiah had that tunnel built. Okay, I could give many more examples, but I'll just give one more. If you read in Daniel 5, it says the last king of Babylon was this guy Belshazzar. Well, the problem with that is all the other ancient historians said the last king of Babylon was Nabonidus. That's what Herodotus said. That's what all the Greek and Roman historians said. So the skeptics of Christianity say, well, you know, I could explain that. There was no dude named Belshazzar. And of course, everybody knows Daniel's not true. He's not a real person. The events were just made up. It's just a fantasy, a fable. But if you read in Daniel 5, Belshazzar says to Daniel, if you can read the writing on the wall, you know that writing on the wall? He says that I'm going to give you the third highest place in the kingdom. Why the third highest place? Well then, in the Ziggurat at Ur, which you can see behind me, they found an inscription that explained what happened. Because Nabonidus had a coup. But Nabonidus was a general. He was not the legitimate heir. But he married the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He had a son whose name was, guess what? Belshazzar. And Nabonidus, because he was not a legitimate king, he took his son as a regent king. And for 17 years, Belshazzar ruled as the regent king of Babylon, and his father was off in the desert doing different things. So when Belshazzar said to Daniel, I'll give you the third place in the kingdom, why did he say that? Well, the reason is because Belshazzar occupied the second place in the kingdom. Anyway, we're going to have a whole conference about this stuff. I'm going to put up the schedule. But I really believe your faith will be greatly encouraged. But the point of this example is, people are always saying, oh, you can't trust the Bible, a bunch of fables, a bunch of stories. History doesn't agree with that. But every single time we find an historical fact, it confirms what we know from the Bible. Now, we're going to be here for the whole weekend. Today for lunch, I'm going to be at the cafeteria, there to answer questions. I've got a website I'll show you later.